A trigger warning that this viewing might not be comfortable. But I urge you, as I do to all my clients and students, and anyone who loves my content knows that I use triggers as medicine. Triggers are medicine. They're signposting us to what needs to heal, and without that signpost, we wouldn't be able to heal it, hence the medicine. And what needs to be healed in this instance is, well, it will depend obviously on you if you do get triggered by what I'm going to be sharing here today. But the reason it needs healing is because it's been neglected. That's why it's triggering you. That's why it's coming at you so gnarlily, like it's just like like that reaction, right? Is because hasn't been attended to, and that's yeah. There are many more videos in the future I intend to make along those lines, rather for how to heal and how to use triggers as medicine for wounds. But for today, I just want to make sure that you are prepared, as I will be talking about Venus, which is the most beloved planet. Even to people who are not familiar with astrology, they know Venus. And they love Venus, and they get the Venus means beauty, and the Venus means pleasure, and everyone loves Venus, and the Venus is the most lovable, etc., etc. So, because I'll be talking about such a revered archetype, let's say, I was going to say goddess, but not everyone will see her as goddess, meaning just ordinary people who are not into astrology or spirituality, right? They would just but recognize it as a muse. Is probably what most people would know her as. So I'll be offering a different perspective, or rather, it's not even a different perspective. It's like I want to talk about what you don't hear often, and for the reason of unshaming it, for the reason of healing it. When something is, the fact that we ignore it doesn't make it go away. It just ends up being ugly and nasty and dangerous. So if we don't own different parts of our Venusian side, Venusian selves that we all have. We all have Venus in our chart. We all have Libra, and we all have Taurus, and we all have those three, right? And that would define how Venusian and what kind of flavor our Venusianness is. And what I'm going to be sharing will resonate for some of you more than the others, right? Again, depending on your Venus, and you might be more comfortable with what I'm sharing or not. So, for instance, I have Venus in Aries, which is the most uncomfortable, together with the Scorpio and Virgo. Out of those three, it's one of those three most uncomfortable placements for Venus. So I have lived my Venus uncomfortably all my life, and I still do. And my journey has been to accept that and to learn to love my Venus exactly for the discomfort that she's giving me, because that she chose to be in Aries when I was born, right? So the ultimate message here, even though it might be triggering, it might just have major problems with some of what I'm saying, and by all means, if you're leaving comments below, I absolutely respect that, your different opinions. Just be mindful of like being just being considerate and being respectful, meaning you're just talking about your opinion, not attacking others, including myself. Like, by all means, offer your opinion that's different to mine. I mean, you can do whatever you want towards me. I will just ignore it if I don't agree with it, or I don't like the way you're communicating. But just for other people as well, I would like this space that I hold on YouTube to be to welcome everyone's opinion that is different. And in order to do that, for everyone to feel comfortable to share their different opinions, we need to be mindful of, like, we need to be considerate of others, and that's not to dilute your own opinion, but just not to make your opinion about other. It's yours purely, and it has nothing to do with anyone else. So I'll trust that you know how to do that. And yeah. So Venus is so complex as an archetype. And for starters, she rules two different signs. So she rules Taurus and Libra, and she's very different. Those are two different Venuses, which is just like a first layer of complexity. Another point I want to make, which is irrelevant to her complexity, is just how I ultimately work with astrology, or rather how I study astrology, how I study life, is through archetypes and through mythology, which is the story of archetypes, various stories, right? Now, mythology is kind of like religion of a certain time, in the sense that Myths are instructions, societal instructions. So this is key thing to understand. Archetypes, in their own right, independent of a story, are glorious in all their guts and glory, in all their ugliness and beauty. They're immoral and amoral, so they don't have morals, and they're beyond morals. Not because they're better or not. It's just that morals are human construct, and they're beyond that. And when they're looked at and seen that way, which is why when I speak of any sign, like I will today mention Libra a lot, and sometimes maybe Taurus and Pisces, it's not like if you're Libra, Pisces, or Taurus, this applies to you. This applies to your Venus. And if it's in Libra, you might resonate more. If it's in Taurus and Pisces, conversely, and all that. So it's not a sign, it's not a person. It's just the archetype in its pure, beyond you, us as humans. So Libra, Venus, Aquarius, Uranus, anything, Saturn, anything I've been mentioning so far in other videos. So there's something to bear in mind regarding that. But myths themselves are social instructions. So that's like I say, like a religion, like pre-religion in terms of religion as we know it, like Christianity. That religion is what I meant. It was like how to show people how to behave and what's acceptable and what's not. And so, but because this is from like before Christ, right? Before antiquity, and some of it definitely before antiquity. I mean, this is stories, yeah, that people have been telling, and they became myths, and that anyway. They're from different times where morality was different to ours. Certainly not Christian morality. And so I like it because it expands and gives more room to how I'm going to interpret an archetype, an astrological placement. It's not obviously instructive in the way that a Christian dogma or any dogma, literally any dogma, any kind of like a rule book would give me, of my time, or times that are closer to me who lives in today, right? So then I would see them as an obstruction, and I would just it wouldn't feel right. It just doesn't add up, doesn't make sense, doesn't give me what I need, which is the room to interpret, to be open-minded, to be accepting, to be accepting of all, really. And so mythology doesn't do that fully, because it's still an instruction. It still reduces its the messages. It has an agenda. It's politics, right, of society, of the times that it was written and spoken about and all that, right? But because it's, so, like I say, so far away in time, it doesn't really seem as restricted to me. In fact, it seems audacious and outrageous, if I'm in my small mind. And that's what I want. I want to be expanded. I want those rules and regulations to be removed so that I can really get a sense and embrace all that humanity is, and get a sense of what that is, and then learn to love it because it is. That's what it is. That's a reality of that archetype, of that placement, etc. So Venus and her myth. And so today, and this is also because the South Node is in Libra, and I will probably have a separate video on Libra archetype, why it's actually the shadowiest archetype for very physical, practical, scientific, if you like, reasons. So it's not about anyone's characteristics or character or traits or psychology or anything. It's just pure physics of being in a human body and living, being human, right? And so it's, like I say, I'll go into that in another video, possibly following this one. I'm not sure yet, but yeah, watch out for it, or subscribe, right? So today I will be the Venus I'll be referring to, I'll be talking the most about, will be the Libra Venus. And so, like I said earlier, that Venus rules both as Taurus and Libra. And the Taurian Venus is very different to the Libran Venus. So to put it very simply, I'm Taurus, by the way, I'm Venus ruled. So therefore my Venus in Aries happens to be poor thing. I used to feel like that. And, occasionally I still feel like, ouch. Well, I do all the time, but I kind of like the ouch. Is that, so the Taurian Venus is, what's the best word to describe her? It's kind of like primitive in the sense of unrefined. It's like, remember, it's a second sign. So you have Aries, then Taurus, and then blah, 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 and then Libra. So Venus, so any planet that rules any of the signs, it's like that's its own evolutionary journey as well. So between Taurus and Libra, Venus has gone through a few more signs, and ultimately through God's gift to us all, Virgo, where she really got refined, like, and then sent out into the world to meet with other people, i.e. Libra. So, but initially she was very, by primitive, I mean, just very all about the sensuality, all about the physical, the pleasure. Didn't really, like, she was the hedonist, she was the debaucheress, and certainly amoral. I should have amoral and immoral. One was like without doesn't have regard for morals, like inconsiderate of others. So that's not what I'm referring to here. That's not this Venus. So Taurus is, and nor is Taurus. Taurus is amoral. I think that's the correct one. Amoral is when you just don't have morals. So you don't, like, your world doesn't have morals. It's like everything goes as long as it's consensual. Maybe for Venus in Taurus, of that kind of mythology and story, maybe that even doesn't matter. To me, it certainly does. Absolutely. But yeah, so I'm just painting the picture of the Venus who is just like in the muck, in the mud, in the, orgies, in the, eating, just not caring about her looks, farting, burping, just being very, all for the pleasure of being alive, for the pleasure of being in one's body. So she's loving her body, and not for, like, when I say that, you might think Instagram worthy photos or something of women or whatever, or not even women. Today, thankfully, that means anyone who is just, Venus is the one who goes, look at me, just look at me. That's Venus, right? So that's Instagram, whoever does that on Instagram, whatever gender, that would apply to them. And so I don't mean that. I mean, she loves her body in whatever the body is, whether it's fat or thin or ugly or not ugly or whatever, right? She loves it. She wants to feel it all. So that's Taurus Venus. That has nothing to do with Libra Venus, because by then she's gone through few iterations of that identity and she arrived at Libra. And so the Libra is the Venus that we most, when we speak about Venus, like en masse, like in astrology world also, when we're not getting really precise and specific and we're not working with clients, when people say Venus, just listen to the language when astrologers talk about it, including myself, but I'm making a disclaimer up front, if you like, so you're clear, because it's important. It's really important because these things are so nuanced and so complex. Like I say, Venus in particular, one of the more complex archetypes, because it's so human. So she's been through the mill of being human, or rather with humans living with us. So we have made a complex because we are complex. Because we're dealing with, we have the layer of humanity as well as the spirituality, the divinity, the soul, the consciousness, however you want to call it. So so when we speak of Venus nowadays, most people are really talking about Libra because they're talking about relationships, and that's Libra, because Taurus is not about relationships. Taurus is all about the self, like the relationship to yourself, to your own body. But in Libra, this is for the first time. So whenever I speak like this, I speak in general terms, like the zodiac wheel, the natural one. So Aries first, Libra seventh, irrespective of what it is your placement, or mine, on anyone's, right? So Libra is the first time we meet the other person. Let that sink in, which is why it's the shadowiest part of our chart, not because there's anything wrong with Libra, but it's inevitable. And like I said, I'll have a separate video on that. So so this is the first time we meet the other. Of course, therefore, it's the only first time we have an actual one-to-one relationships with another. So whenever people speak of Venus and relationships, which is most of the time like the go-to criteria for Venus or theme of Venus, right? That's Libra. That's Libra Venus. So just a kind of a little explainer there why I'm going to be working with Libra, but also because we have South Node in Libra, meaning Venus as a Libra archetype, as a ruler of a Libra, I should say. Now, wow, 14 minutes in, I'm going to deliver the triggers. So I'm going to tell some stories of mythology of Venus and explain why I'm saying what I'm saying. But first I'm going to say it. So I consider, amongst other things, but I consider Venus to also be the archetype of disempowerment. That is, DIS, empowerment, disempowerment. So the opposite of empowerment, right? I know I'm foreign, so my accent can be sometimes in the way. So that's why I'm like making clear that you fully understand what I'm saying. She is objectified desire. She's a reductive manual to being a woman. And she's the original people pleaser. So now let me tell you her story, which explains why she's what I'm saying she's. And this is the birth of Libra Venus, and she's called Urania, I think is pronunciation. Yeah. As opposed to Taurian Venus, which is called something that it's escaping my mind. I have it in my books, which I haven't, my own books. Anyway, so we'll just go with this, that she's the myth I'm going to share with you, the myth that is famously depicted by Botticelli, which I'll link below to the painting, which you will recognize immediately if you don't already. Well, Venus is like blonde, waving hair, and she's on this like oyster in the sea, foaming sea, important moment. So that is it's called the birth of Venus, and that is Libra Venus as opposed to Taurus Venus, right? So, long story short, she was born out of castrated male genital, meaning Saturn. I'm going to be possibly mixing the Roman and Greek names here, so forgive me. Just go with me, because I'm really ultimately talking astrological names. That's most important to me. So Saturn was castrated his father Uranus, and threw the member, his genital, into the sea. That was his way of dethroning him and getting, but that's kind of, at this point, is not even in part of the story, right? It's not relevant for what I'm speaking about here. And out of the foam, which is kind of a symbol of male ejaculation, as in male productivity, male power, right? Male, it's like a cry of survival, like, meaning because of that ejaculation and the sperm, the male species, or rather the humanity, continues, right? It's that, and that's a male stamp on their part in that process, right? So it's like life affirming, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. And so she gets born out of that. So there is obviously even a biological kind of correspondence there, which kind of makes sense in that way. But what I'm more interested in, and this is my interpretation, and by the way, just on a side point, if I haven't mentioned it often enough or ever, here on YouTube, I'm not sure, but I'm just to kind of these are my credentials. I have studied history of art and literature. I'm a student of both, and I have a lifelong love of art and history of art. So I'm familiar. I mean, I've been doing this a long time outside of astrology, interpreting. I'm not saying my interpretation is correct or incorrect. It's just my interpretation, right? But I'm not talking out of my elbow, is ultimately what I'm saying. I have those are my credentials. I'll just say that much. Okay, so what I see in that, and it's, and I'm not, so what I'm seeing in that is I see in real life, and this is how I work with astrology. It's like life first, and then I'm like, but why? Why is it like this? Why is life like this? And then the best so far in 54 years, I have found most reliable system that explains life in a way that just feels life affirming and life loving and life comprehensive, while also life all inclusive, is astrology. That's that's it. That's all. So life is showing me Venus, women, female, women. I'll say women. So I don't look at why. So why? So this is why I'm connecting. So it's like this is in our genetic coding. It's like we have these myths, the way of being, the way of the instruction dates back in the genetic pool of humanity, back in the prehistory, or let's maybe not prehistory, but certainly pre-antique times, even, and certainly before Christ, BC, right? before AC. So you get what I mean? It's that far is in our DNA, in our consciousness. We've been brainwashed, we've been indoctrinated, we've been conditioned. I don't want to be, I'm not interested in what's the word, either conspiracy theory or just like, pumping up against certain arguments or anything. No, but I'm just saying this has existed that long, and it has fed into our way of making sense of the world and ourselves, as women in particular, but as men. So my point there being is that, and this is patriarchal. I mean, thankfully nowadays we're seeing less of that. But sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yes, so the way she was born, to me, it's like the male castration, so a disempowerment of a male, of a father figure, right, resulted, it's like he was rescued and redeemed and regained, like the healing of the disempowerment for a male was a birth of the most beautiful woman in the world, because the moment she walked out and got out of the sea, she was considered as such, and wherever she went, she dazzled, and that's her whole story. I mean, you might remember the story of how the Trojan War started, because it was she was chosen out to be the most beautiful woman. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that one. I haven't got all the clear synopsis of that myth now in front of me, but it was her beauty that defined her. She was the most beautiful, and there was no arguing with that. But do you see what I mean? She was born out of male frustration, out of male castration, right? Disempowerment. And so no empowerment can be born out of disempowerment. That's first. But also from then on, she's the object of desire, and she's the reductive manual of the womanhood, because it comes as it's like the birth of how a woman was made to be there to heal someone else's disempowerment, father's disempowerment, men's disempowerment, but that spread to everything and everyone else, right? But it's certainly, the male as in the opposite sex, it's not even about the sex, it's about the power, it's about someone who has the power to tell her that she's beautiful, because that's her identity. And so that power comes from outside, doesn't it? So if you think just a little kind of, let's zoom out a little bit, and go to art, and Rubens, I'll put also a link to his two paintings, famous paintings. Venus, the iconography of Venus is mirror. So that's obviously for the beauty reasons. So she needs a mirror to always make sure that it is she's beautiful. I mean, I'm playing to the Venus. I'm being Venusian, and beauty matters to me. To feel beautiful matters to me. So I'm with her. I love her. I love her for all her gunk and for all her glory and all of it, right? I'm Venus in Aries. I mean, I'm gonna love all Venus, because I'm the extreme and the one, but I have to make peace with everything else. Otherwise, I'm never gonna make peace with myself. And when I say I mean anyone in that particularly uncomfortable placement of Venus, which could be those three signs, like I say, Scorpio, Virgo, and Aries. But it could be, and it will be, if she's just conjunct Chiron, that you will resonate with this even more so than maybe someone else. So let me backtrack my thoughts. Let me reconnect. Yes, I was talking about mirror, because then I realized there's a mirror here, right? So mirror is her iconography, and she's depicted with a mirror often, in many, not, I'm sure not everywhere. In fact, I know not everywhere, but I'll share those two paintings of by Rubens, and the point of them, the reason I'm bringing those two up is because she is not looking at the mirror. Now, this is the power of art. This is the power of Pisces. If you watch my other video on Pisces, and I'll link below, and Virgo axis, and I'll talk about Venus and Pisces in another video, which is the Venus, which is the most evolved, most refined Venus. Yeah, it is in theory. I mean, in real life, this is the problem with bringing anything Piscean down to earth, but that's, like I say, I'll talk about that in the video. But ultimately, art is is so wise. And yeah, so in those two paintings, she's looking, she's not looking at the mirror. This is she's actually looking at who's looking at her. Because why? Because even the mirror, if she has a mirror, she's left with herself. So think of Libra, Aries, or any astrology, placements, or the opposite, right? But Libra, Aries is particularly to do with the mirror because it's the axis of the self, the most immediate sense of yourself, and the next most immediate sense of yourself is the other person, i.e. Libra. So the mirror is there, such a fantastic metaphor for that axis. So, and we're talking about Venus not Venus in Libra, but Venus as a ruler of Libra in this storyline. And this myth is particularly that Venus, right? So so you would think that's the idea of a mirror to the other person, right? Whether that's Libra or you are Aries, or that's Aries and you're Libra, but the opposite is meant to be you, because that's what the world around us, according to not just me, I agree with that. I don't know whether there is one person who has that view, so according to them, but it's my belief. It's how I view the world, is that everything around us serves as a mirror. It mirrors something about us. If we are noticing it, is because it's like in a mirror, we notice something. We noticed ourselves. So in a healthy, and I use this as air quotes, it's healthy, but I don't mean it as, I'm not judging it. I don't mean that if it's not healthy, it's bad, but it is a healthier version, would be to look at that. So what is it that you see in the mirror, and actually look at yourself and see yourself. But because from the moment of birth, she was disempowered, and then from the moment of birth, as she walked out of that foam, right, she was told that she's beautiful. She was told. You don't know that you're beautiful, like, until you figure out for yourself. And even then, it doesn't ever, nothing ever works without a reflection from another. But in her case, she was never given a chance to she realized how wonderful it is to be told that, and how she was getting everything she wants. I mean, and she was adored and loved, and who doesn't want that kind of lifestyle, right? So it's totally understandable that she just didn't even want to question it. In fact, she dares not question it, because what if she isn't beautiful? And what if she doesn't think she's beautiful if she looks at a mirror? So she doesn't look at a mirror, which immediately tells you disempowerment, like she's not confident to know that she is beautiful. She's looking, so like, don't know how, anyway, she's looking at the person who's looking at her, and she sees them in the mirror. So that's a kind of like, how you don't want to admit that you depend on someone, but whether for the opinion or whether for whatever else, right? So you will not directly look at them, but you will kind of look at the mirror at them. So it doesn't, it's kind of sneaky, because you're protecting yourself, because you're insecure, because you're disempowered, right? And so she is the saying just came to me, the beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. I think that's the expression. And that refers to art and to muses, but that is Venus. That is Venus. And also it ultimately means that, I think I'm beautiful. You might not think I'm beautiful. You might think I'm ugly. You might think I'm annoyingly, arrogantly unattractive. Yeah, fine. Truly, I don't. I do think what I just said, that I am beautiful and attractive. And so, but that, for all of us to get to that stage, to be actually internally, and when someone would tell me that I'm not, depends who it is and how it's said, but because it's been a long time, it doesn't upset me. Yeah. Unless you tell me down there and then you ruin my vibe of the community, in which case I'll probably, I don't know what I'll do. I'll respond, probably not. You can try me, you can test me, I don't know. I'm a third line, I do experiments, trial and error, we'll see. But my point is, it takes a different journey away from the other, Aries, which is why Venus in Aries is, all the planets that are apparently bad and difficult are actually a great opportunity to get wise on the topics of that. So this is beauty and relationships, Venus in Aries, right? But because she's in the place that she's not happy, she's all her life figuring out how to be happy. And in that process, she does figure out what happiness is more substantially than maybe someone who had it easy, didn't have to worry about that. Where was I going with this? So whenever we talk about Venus, particularly in Hellenistic astrology, that she's, I started by saying that she's most beloved of all archetypes. But whenever, but in Hellenistic astrology, so traditional old, like from the times of those myths, right? The ancient Greece and all that, she was considered a benefic together with Jupiter. Jupiter, who's Zeus, who rules the Olympus, like he's the god of the gods. And so you can see, I mean, like you can see why they're benefics. But let's not talk about Zeus or Jupiter now. Certainly not time for that, or that's not topic of this video. But even that message has filtered down to all of us, understanding that beauty opens doors. And I can assure you, whether you think I'm beautiful or not, when I was younger and when I was looking for, like, going to interviews and getting jobs, and, you know, which I haven't done in a while now, but I used to do that regularly. Trust me, the looks open doors. I used to, like, cash in on it. Like, I would just not say no to a job offer just because it was easier for me to get in and, you know, charm them with my charms and with my, you know, my beauty and whatever. Yeah, but it was always, there was a sense of like, just something was off. It was subtle and it never translated into anything inappropriate, but it's unconscious, you know. No one, I mean, I was obviously competent as well, don't get me wrong, but it was like, it's that people, there was just a quick kind of little story. I worked once on a major project decades ago with this woman who was, I mean, you just can't take your breath. It's like she walks into a room and you just like, oh, she was incredibly beautiful. I have not, and she was tall as well, and dressed very kind of like strikingly. So she really like emphasized and yeah, but it's like, you can't say no to her. I literally, like, I remember that was probably the first time where I was considering this, like thinking about it in a way that I'm sharing here, like, wow, beauty is the most powerful thing. It's like so powerful that, and I'm a cis heterosexual female. I mean, I love women, like I love how beautiful they are and all that, but I'm not attracted to women in that way. So it wasn't to her, but still I was like, it's just like, wow. It's like, I just don't want to talk. I just want to, yeah, just like that. Just look at her and go, just could look at her all day long. It was just, oh my God, you just kind of go into that. So you can see how, or I could see certainly then for the first time being on the receiving end of such beauty. I'm not beauty like that at all, nor have I ever thought I was. But it was like an example, like I say. And so beauty, and, you know, the muses, that we all seek beauty, you know, which is, and so don't you think, like, knowing now in 21st century, looking back, and this is like, I've come from a different world, a different generation. I lived most of my life in the old paradigm, in the old patriarchy, in the 70s, okay, 80s and 90s as kind of my youth, my prime maybe years, and that's like, you know, last century, right? Today, you can see the consequences of that, and people waking up, young women, and thank goodness for that. The younger generation is just done with that story and done with those. But I also know, having been close to many of them and knowing them as, you know, either as clients or friends or whatever, how there is that narrative. There is that narrative. Just go on Instagram and you will see it, you know, that there is a certain beauty that, because it's like almost inevitable when we see beauty, it's like we are just like disarmed. Right? And so whoever is, so Venus, sorry, that was the whole point, to make the point that she knows that beauty opens the door, that she will have everything, and that's why she's a benefic. Wherever beauty comes, wherever you can bring beauty, so the beauty rather, sorry, not the beauty, yeah, is the benefic. But Venus happens to be the goddess of it. But that's unfortunate in the sense that for the humanity, right, for the way we have organized ourselves as species. So it's a female, or it's a feminine, or it's a human trait as opposed to a human activity, a human practice, a human need. So, and it is a human need. And that's why I had the whole kind of movement going on for a little while, but it sort of died down, or at least extinguished it a bit, which is to make art and beauty out of everything. I mean, I do that in my day-to-day life anyway. And that's the beauty of Virgo as well. That's where Virgo kind of can help, your Virgo placement, to make beauty of ordinary things and mundane things. And certainly in art, you will find a lot of that. So my point is, beauty is awe-inspiring. Beauty is something we all have, and we all have beauty. I have witnessed women and people and such situations where the only difference between them and someone who thinks that they're unattractive or unbeautiful is, and they look similar, so irrespective of what you think of that look, but one person thinks they're unbeautiful and another who's similar in size, in shape, in hair, whatever, right? Things they are, and that one who thinks they are, they exude beauty, where the other one exude unbeauty because they think it. So that's the tragedy in one sense, even though, there's no judging, there's no blaming, but it is what pains me when I see, whereas Venus in Aries maybe, that really it's the beauty that matters, and beauty in everything, literally, that we need to learn to find beauty in everything, to find Venus as an archetype, and not as a woman, not as a beautiful human, but as a beauty in everything. That is how we have healed that's how we have given power to Venus to be. So that's the kind of the upside of Venus, or the good side, or the good service that she's doing for humanity, is that she's a muse, right? So that's the muse to create beauty and to feel yourself beautiful, no matter how you look, no matter where you are on the convention criteria of beauty that dictated by some nonsense stuff on Instagram or wherever it is. I don't know, right? Do you see what I'm getting at? So, okay, this is a long one. I'm gonna wrap it up. So, I just wanted to offer you this. Like, I would love to hear what you think. Like how has this landed? And if you've been triggered, and what has been triggered, and yeah, I'll leave it to that, just to see how, and then I might have a different video kind of about triggers, which I will anyway have, but I mean, I might just kind of use your responses if I have any, which I hope I will, to kind of give me some more material to work with. But yeah, I would love to hear what you think. This is what I mean. I wanted to give you, no one talks about this, about Venus, whole video just dedicated to not so pleasant side of Venus, or the problematic side of Venus, right? But we all veneer. No, is that veneer? No, revere, sorry. But veneration is also to do with Venus. It's, yeah, okay, I'm not sure. Consider your Venus placement, consider your Libra placements, and just generally how you are as the feminine side of you. And if you're a woman in particularly, then, how do you do your womanhood? How do you feel like a woman? Do you feel empowered? And what does empower you? Is it just the looks and the beauty? Or is it, or do you feel disempowered because you don't think you have those, right? I mean, I think these are huge questions, huge. It's such an important topic. And Venus is currently retrograding in Leo, and Leo is also about, look at me, I'm glorious, I'm fabulous, and that's why we love Leo, and that's why we love Venus. Everyone loves. See, that's the point, and I'm gonna wrap up in a second. But you see, the moment someone just steps into their and look at me, I'm fabulous, I'm just the most beautiful human on this planet. When someone means it and says it, you love them. And if yes, you may have some envy, may even jealousy comes in, but really, there is attraction to that when someone. And you can't deny them that they look good, they vibe. I mean, maybe you can. If you're contrarian by nature, you will probably find a way to do that, and maybe you will. And as in, even if you're not contrarian, but I believe, and I've seen it enough times to make this as a rule in my life, as a kind of that's how it is, right? That when someone carries themselves in a way that they feel confident and they feel beautiful, even if they're not, even if they know, I've been in these places, where I knew that I wasn't conventionally beautiful, and or my body wasn't, or whatever. And if the moment I would carry myself as if it was, I mean, not just that, I don't know if I turned heads, because I don't, but it's I just felt I felt good, I felt beautiful, and like I say, I've seen women who I know don't come under the conventional beauty, and but they feel so beautiful. And oh my God, are they sexy? Are they attractive or what? I mean, it's just, I could stare at them. I'm obsessed. I'm like, oh, you're so beautiful. And it's only because they, not only, but that's why, because I'm thinking of that beautiful woman that I talked about earlier. That was like, I was in my 20s, so that's a long time ago. So I was a different person, that's what I mean. Like, I was less mature, I was less grown up, I have lived less, basically, that's all that means. And actually looking back, and everything I shared was the experience of the time, but now looking back at her, and she was dressing strikingly. She had a kind of quirky sense of fashion, and she was, like I say, stunning, absolutely breathtakingly stunning. But there was a sense of her, there was something not there. It's meaning, this is retrospectively, but there was a sense that she was relying on that too much. And how can you not, when that's all you I mean, I imagine I certainly was one of everyone else, and me would tell her that at least once a day, that she looks amazing, stunning, breathtaking, right? So she's been getting that all her life. So she identifies with that. Hence, like I spoke of Venus, when she comes out, that's what she hears for the first time. The first thing she hears is how beautiful she is, and that's all she is. And so when someone is so flatly and two-dimensionally or monosyllabically identified with one concept of human identity, or female or human identity, is, you can feel that. And so when I think of her, I remember her, there is that sense that there was, and I remember our conversations were never vibrant, dynamic. They were work-wise related, obviously, but when they were like more outside of work, there was just, she didn't have the personality, maybe that's the word. And I remember, so I'm gonna wrap up this, but it's a Venus topic, so it's like chatty and socializing, right? And it's Libra, and the Venus that rules Libra from the myth story, as I said, and that's all about socializing, right? And so I remember a friend of mine, like an old friend, like decades ago, she used to say to me, she never considered herself beautiful, although I thought she was beautiful, and she always used to say, like, only you and my mother think I'm beautiful. But she always used to say, somewhat spitefully maybe, but we were kids, teenagers, like, when you're beautiful, you don't have to develop a personality. Like, to be interesting. That's essentially what she meant, and said. Maybe I should have translated it literally. So it's like, you don't have to be interesting as a person. In fact, it could be a distraction. So just think of the supermodels. Nowadays, they, I think, have personality in the sense that we get to know them, right? And I mean, I used to be more into that world, like, know the supermodels when they first became the thing with, what's her name? Crawford and Darlington. Yeah, anyway, those in the era of Michael Jackson and his videos and all that, that's 90s. But we didn't really know them until later. And so nowadays, I'm not sure where the world is when it comes to supermodels or models, basically, fashion models. But in our time, even prior to supermodels, which is still my youth, my teens, they were just cardboard cutouts. Because it's like you would ruin the beauty if you start to bring in your personality, because it might be disharmonious with the beauty. You might be saying things, or you might have an accent that doesn't go with it, or you might say the word that isn't as beautiful. You know what I mean? Just, oh my God, just don't you want to scream, right? So, Venus, my heart goes out to you, truly. It's like, what an existence. But do you see, it's a disempowered I feel emotional, actually. Oh, God. But I do, it's like, can we just like get a bit real about Venus? Just a little bit real. Give her, she wants it. Everyone wants to be seen, but also for the good but also for the bad, right? For the stuff that it's like, oh, no, we don't want to speak of that. Oh, no, we don't want to see that. No, we do. And when we look at it and when we love her, in spite or for it, not in spite, for it, then she's healed, then she's happy, and then she can just like get empowered. And when I say this, I don't mean literal archetype. It's what we do with it. The archetype is full on, completely whole, and doesn't need us for anything. But we have taken the instruction. Remember, myth is an instruction. This is I don't know what the human story. Remember how I say always, yeah, start with life, and then I look at myth and astrology to explain it, to give me some deeper meaning, to connect it with a bigger picture, to understand it and all that, right? So I don't know what the life story was behind that myth back in the, I don't know, let's say 200 BC. I don't know. So I would actually be curious to know. I might even write something about that anyway. But that is then the instructions are, right. So, you know, when man gets dirt, she gets a woman. And it's like, I mean, I know this is very unpalatable to today's ear possibly, but remember, we're talking 200 BC, and it's dating and filtering all the way back from there to now. And, you know, talk to women today, even if it's unpalatable to your ear, talk to some women, or find women, find forums or whatever, where women still suffer from those. Or, yeah, I say women as I don't know else. I mean, I haven't been on forums like that for at least a decade, so forgive my ignorance if there's something else happening today regarding these topics and subjects and involves other genders, and I don't know how that plays out, so I'm ignorant in that way. But this still stands, because I know there are women still who are struggling with this. And it's, hold on. Oh yeah, the human story behind that myth of Venus. So I don't know it, but I would be fascinated to know what this human story was, because the instruction came from that. So beautiful women solve all problems. Beauty ultimately solve all problems, which it does. And I have a whole thing about that, which I will talk about. I will have another video on that, because we as animals love what's beautiful. We love what's beautiful. We love it. It's the easiest way to love something, because it's beautiful. And so the art of life is to turn everything about yourself, everything about your life, into beauty. Like, but not make it rather beautiful. That is not the best grammatical sentence in the way that's not what I wanted to say. What I want to say is that to find, not impose beauty onto your life, but find beauty in your life as it is. Like, your life as it is, just the way it is. Find beauty in that, because that is the empowered Venus. That is your relationship to your life, to your relationships, to other people, to yourself, because Venus is how we relate. So on that note, this is the longest video yet, but it's a huge topic. So, okay, let me know what you think.